Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so blessed and honored to be here with you today and my friend, Steffen Henkel, Managing Director at CrossCulture Academy. Steffen, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me here, Ben. I'm very excited about it.
Steffen, it's been too long. I think it was like a year ago. We had a really amazing conversation. It was a whole different time. I had a real job. It was amazing. We had a 15-minute conversation turned into an hour-long conversation, and it was just fantastic talking to you. And it's so great to have you here on Love and Relo, where we can really dive into some, intercultural training topics and just stuff. So
Great, thank you. I was very, very happy when you approached me and asked me whether I be on your show. That was really nice to hear.
it's great. It's great to have you, and I love the fact that we get to have all these folks from around the world. It's one of the joys of my job is to get to talk to people around the globe. Where in the world are you right now, Steffen?
I'm in Stuttgart in the southwestern part of Germany right now.
Steffen from Stuttgart. I love it.
Right.
I love it. This is fantastic. Oh gosh, don't start, Richard. We got people chiming into the comments right now. Let us know who you are, where you are in the world right now. If you're watching this right now, go ahead and give yourself a shout out. Of course, we're giving shout outs. We love honoring everybody that tunes in. Also, if you've got questions about culture, if you've got questions about intercultural training, what is intercultural training? Why is it important in relocation? Is it really necessary? All those questions and more, throw them in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. We're going to ask Steffen the hard questions here. Let's see here. Richard's. See, this is what happens when we have people from around the world. Everybody likes to come on, show off the fact that they're, polyglots and everything, rub it in my American face. What is Richard saying? Can you translate for us, Steffen?
Hello, nice greetings from London, Steffen. Welcome.
Nice. Thank you, Richard. That was lovely.
Hello, Richard.
Yeah, Richard's good people. Stacy Huff. Hi, Ben and Steffen. I'm looking forward to the show.
Nice.
It's good to see you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Super producer Stacy in the house. Janet Turner. Hello from Central Florida. What's up, Janet? This is great. I'm working on my pronunciations.
Wow, somebody else from Germany. Great. Hi, Maike.
I love it. Hit that like button right now if you're watching right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button. Let us know what's going on. If you got questions, again, this is going to be an open dialogue. Can't wait. Intercultural training is one of my favorite topics to talk about because everybody understands culture to some extent. Everybody's had a feeling of feeling out of place, of not knowing the culture, of having aha moments, of being the new person in the room, whether it be at a company on a micro scale or a country on a macro scale. And I think we can all relate to some experience to kind of cultural shock to some extent. Steffen, is that your experience in training people? Do you feel like people are generally receptive or do they not understand it?
Usually it's very easy to get into conversations with people about what I'm doing and my job, and I just have to mention intercultural, and people, they all have their stories.
Yes.
And that's very nice always. Yeah, that's true. And in trainings, same case. People are usually very excited. I mean, many of the trainings we are doing are preparation trainings for people going outside or going abroad to other countries, and they're usually quite excited about this. So we usually have very excited, happy people in our trainings. Yeah,
I love it. And I want to hear, so we're going to get into all this stuff here. And I want to hear from everybody. We got Teresa, Rob, checking in, Aaron. I want to hear from you all. Give me one example of culture shock or a moment where you were in a new culture. It could be even at a company culture or maybe even, geographic, somewhere else in the world. Give me an example of culture shock that you've experienced out there. Rob, Aaron, Richard, Teresa, Janet, Stacy, just throw it in there. I'd love to hear your examples. All right, I'm going to need you again, Steffen, even for this most basic. Guten Abend, what does that mean?
Good evening. Hallo, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is embarrassing and reinforces all the stereotypes about Americans. And that's what I'm here for. Aaron, hello from Kansas City. Looking forward to this episode. Aaron, I'd love to hear any culture shocks stories you have as well here. Talking about stereotypes. What are your thoughts on stereotypes? You deal with people from all over the world. You probably know us better than we know ourselves sometimes. What are your thoughts on stereotypes?
Okay, very good question. I think that's something where I could discuss a lot with other interculturalists, I guess, because somehow stereotypes is seen as something bad and to avoid by all costs, not to have any stereotypes. There's a little bit of
Okay, is it this
yeah.
way? Is it this way in every country, or is it like in the U.S.? Because in the U.S. we're like, hey, don't do stereotypes. Don't say all men are like this, all women are like that, all white people are like this, all black people are like that, all old people, young people. I mean, as soon as you start generalizing, people are like, whoa, don't say that. That's how it is in the United States? Is it like that in other countries too? Is there a general disdain for stereotypes?
I mean, it's in Germany. It's the same way you just described it for the US. And of course, this way of I want to use the word stereotype in a certain way. What I think is that overgeneralization and having stereotypes something that is blocked in your head and you're not able to discover what's actually the truth, so that I'm only see you as Americans, but in fact it's Ben in front of me right now, and
So
that is
Ben is ignorant, not Americans are ignorant.
No.
That's what you're trying to say.
Don't turn my words in my
I'm just
mouth.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No, and so for me, stereotypes, and maybe the proper English word for that is more like cliche. And what I think is that our brain, no, it's not just me thinking that, our brain is wired to use stereotypes. The world is much too complex to that we can get it in all shapes and see everything. We just need to condense it to make it so that we can grasp it with our brain. And actually, this is what stereotypes are for. So it's not about not having stereotypes, it's about working properly with stereotypes and realizing when I do something, I have to know that there are stereotypes in my head and that these stereotypes always can be wrong. And I have
So you're saying stereotypes are actually useful?
Oh yeah, of course. They are also useful. They help me to make the world comprehensible for me. And by bring them into prejudices, then they become dangerous. And we should avoid prejudices by all costs. But stereotypes are something, at least in the German, when you use the German word, which is Stereotyp, it's the same word. So, and sometimes it's a little bit of a false friend. I don't know whether the meaning that I apply to the word stereotypes is
No. I
exactly
think it is, and I'm not trying to trap you into saying something ridiculous. No,
Okay.
no. I think the nuances. I think the nuance is really good, right? Like, if I have to assume all doors open, that's how I get through buildings, right? I have to assume, that yes, yes, because we can't have to hyper analyze every situation we're in, and we'll never get down the street to the store and back home. We have to move through life with a set of rules in our head. And I like what you mentioned before about when it turns into prejudices or biases or when we start to have negative thoughts, negative emotions tied to these stereotypes. To me, like, that's kind of a line where we can't cross. I find this really interesting. I'd love to hear what people think about stereotypes. This is a very hot topic. It has been really hot for a long time because stereotypes do have a very negative connotation because of the way that they're used. Richard says stereotypes. Brits say Germans don't have a sense of humor. I've lived there 3 years and say 100% Germans can have a great laugh. Great friends there still after 40 years since I first went there. Well, that's cool.
Nice to hear that. Happy to hear that.
No, you do have a great sense of humor. I mean, you've been laughing this whole show. I mean, we were laughing backstage.
Okay,
I mean, it's one of the reasons I enjoyed talking to you so much the first time we ever chatted. So 100%. Do you find that people come into your classes and they have all of these stereotypes about where they're going and the people that they're going to go live with amongst?
I mean, usually people try to avoid stereotypes, and that's actually a good thing. They start, at least in a training, they start to try to avoid stereotypes and to overthink them. And in a training, they really try not to be stereotypical about anything. So what I try to I mean, when we talk about another culture, we have to use stereotypes. Otherwise, it would not be possible to make any.
You can't teach them anything.
Yeah,
You're teaching stereotypes in a
correct.
way. You're saying when you go to the Dutch do these things a lot.
They tend to do. This is how we say we try.
Yeah.
They tend to, or in general, it's more like this than in the other parts of the world or in other countries, and you can be aware of that. But again, always, you will meet somebody and he might be totally different. But it opens up actually your mind about other things. The things can be differently than you thought. And usually we think in our world, and by using these stereotypes, we open it actually up and let people know that there are totally different ways to see the world, to approach it. And then you have go back down to see the individual again. So this is like a going back and forth all the time.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me because what you're doing is you're deconstructing stereotypes. You're saying, okay, take it all away, and then let's put them back in with intention. And let's say, the Germans tend to be more like this than this or whatever. Let's intentionally build these back in as a set of rules that we can kind of move with as we navigate cultures and when we're going on assignments. And understanding why they're there and put them there for a reason instead of saying, I was brought up this way or I've never been exposed to people and therefore I don't have any data to go off of. And so I just believe this about a type of people. I think that's a very interesting distinction you've made there.
Thank you. Yeah, and always try to question them as well. I mean, they are there. It's how our brain is wired, but you have to question them all the time, kind of all the time. So the question, I have this saying, I heard that, which is like the brain is a excellent servant, but a terrible master, something like that.
What does that mean? That's really interesting.
Yeah, the brain is wired to actually make the world as easy as possible for us, so that the brain is not using too much energy. It already needs 20%, more than 20% of the energy that our whole body is using, and the brain is only 6% of the mass that our body.
Well, you just blew my mind, no pun intended. So you just said that my brain is occupying 60% of the energy of my body. So when I feel mentally fatigued or if I feel physically tired from thinking too much, I never understood this. I'm like, why am I so tired? I sit at a desk all day. There's people that are working on roofs over here. They're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, how am I tired physically right now? And you're saying it's because my brain is actually occupying all this energy?
Correct. Yes, totally correct. So it always tries to save energy as much as possible. And it is doing that by always going the same way.
I feel like a lot less lazy right now, probably almost too much so. I feel like you created this interesting talk track where I actually tell myself that I'm more physically active than I am because I think so hard. This is, Steffen, this is good stuff here. Elena's chiming in. We got a bunch. Keep chiming. I want to hear your thoughts on this stuff. Is this interesting to you? Because it's interesting to me. Elena's saying, here's another stereotype. Germans do things very thoroughly, sadly resulting in very slowly, too, particularly to U.S. Americans. Do you think Germans get a bad rap about being too slow or methodical?
First of all, hi, Elena. Very nice to see you here. I think that is one of the stereotypes, and Elena put it very correctly that I have the feeling when working with my American colleagues, it's very much that I have the feeling that I'm constantly standing on the brake, and for me, Americans are constantly staying on the gas. So it's kind of a thing, but you can get much out of that. I mean, putting both of these tendencies together, or both of these characteristics together, can really produce a great result, because some take in the thoroughness and the other one the quickness to react to what's going on in the market, and that is actually a great deal, putting these two characteristics together.
You're right. You're seeing the strength and diversity there. You're saying take these two different skill sets, kind of put them together, and you have good balance.
Yes.
Let me flip this around here. Elena says Germans do things very slowly to Americans. What do Germans think about Americans? Is it the inverse? Are we too hasty, or what is the stereotype about Americans?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, Steffen. It's okay. This is a safe place. Nobody's watching. This is fine. This is great. It's very safe. It's very anonymous.
what we sometimes don't get is the way codes are used. Like, for example, the code for friendship in the US in the USA, that we need quite a while until we say somebody's a friend, and that Americans do some of the stuff that they do is already for us very close, and it feels very close. And then when other things happen, like giving out the telephone number and saying you can call me anytime, and saying you're my friend and this is my friend, blah, and using these words that for us are, I mean, friend, that's a very interesting cross-cultural topic, that the usage of words is so different in different cultures, and the word friend is a very good example for that. When you say friend, does it mean the same what I mean when I say Freund?
All right, you're right, guys. I opened this show and I said my friend Steffen. I should be honest, I've only met this person once before in my life. We are not actually friends. I overstated. I apologize to you all for the charade that is ensuing here. No, I'm kidding.
Please,
no, but Steffen, I do. I feel a closeness, and maybe I'm just more open. Maybe Americans are more open, but I do. I feel like I've met you twice now virtually. I feel connected to you. I feel like we're very aligned from a value standpoint. I like your sense of humor. And for me, like, that's enough. That's all it takes, you know? I like you, you like me. Hey, we're friends now, you know, in my book.
And both ways are perfect. And that makes I see it the same way. There's a connection, and we like to talk with each other and chat and laugh. It's just that the coding is different done in these two cultures.
When you say coding, help me understand that language just a little bit here, because what does that mean when you say coding? What is coding?
I would say the word friend. What does it make in my head? What does it all
does it represent?
Characteristics? What does it represent? Yeah. Perfect.
What does it stand for?
And there's a overlap, of course, but also the overlap that you have with other US Americans about the word friend and the characteristics that come with it, and the Germans with each other. That is, of course, more of an overlap. And this can lead to misunderstandings. That's the only thing. Both are totally correct, and there's nothing that I want to say this is better than the other. It's just something that we have to learn so that we understand why. I mean, Germans usually have the friendliness of Americans is something that we get sometimes wrong, and we don't understand it correct. And that's strange.
What do you think it is? Do you think we're like pickpockets or something? What are you not understanding about our friendship? Like, we're just trying to get in your watch your wallet kind of thing. Like,
no, it's we're just not used to it. It's new for Germans.
It's a little weird, probably, too. They're like, "Whoa, wait, back up. We're not friends." All right, so we've got some tremendous comments. I'm loving the comments. People are getting so into this because, obviously, you know, to your point earlier, culture touches everyone in a very personal way. I'm just going to kind of pick some of these. This is so great. Keep these comments coming. I want to know what your thoughts are on culture. Have you had weird cultural experiences? Did you have a stereotype about another culture and then come to find out it wasn't true at all? Or were you treated a way that you found odd, you know, by a different culture? I love these. Culture is fascinating. It's the stuff of dinner party conversation. It's great. Janet Turner says, in the U.S., we have cultural differences domestically. Is it the same in Germany, or is culture all the same across the country?
Yeah, that's also very cool. And Ben, you said something before. You don't even have to cross a border to experience other cultures or experience a culture shock. I mean, actually, a culture is always formed when a certain a group of people is doing something together. Programming of the mind. That's what one of the researchers said about that. And so even there are corporate cultures, and you can have a culture shock when you come from one company to another. In fact, we already had a company where US Americans and people from UK were working together, and we should perform a cross-cultural training there. And actually what we found out, and what people there found out, that there were people from the US, from the East and the West Coast, and they had more topics to discuss with each other than with the people from the UK. So yeah, there are differences within one country, and with Germany the same. We have the more reserved northern parts of Germany and the more, let's say, relationship-oriented southern parts. So, for example, yeah, we have this as well.
This is great. So many questions. This is great. Let's see. Richard says, is it perhaps the case, though, that the west part of Germany is probably closer to the American culture than anywhere in Europe? It felt like that to me a little.
That's a very
What
good
European
question.
culture, in your opinion, what European culture is most like the American culture? This is such Richard, I appreciate that you're finally coming around to my way of thinking. This is a very US centric question here. What is most like us over here in the US? US stands for us, by the way. What is most like, what? I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm just playing into the stereotype here. But in your opinion, your professional opinion, Steffen, what culture is most like the US, would you say?
Oh, that's a very good question. Maybe I don't really know what
Me
what
either.
it is. That is, I mean, United States is a very unique mixture, and I
Why?
mean,
Why do you say that?
I would say one of the fabrics of the United States is that people from Europe that couldn't find their way here and they were threatened by unfreedom and that all the people that were ruling them and so on, and these people without any clue what is going to happen, they made their way and said, okay, let's go somewhere else and settle there and try to get the best out of that. And I guess that's still this attitude is still something that is deeply ingrained into US American culture, at least in parts of it. But you know this better. You are a US American. Do I say something that is totally stupid at this point, or would you agree?
No, I mean, I love the way you're looking at it, right? And so it's like, it's not about a culture that comes from like a geographic region, because we've pulled entrepreneurs, immigrants. First of all, I want to make a statement out there people may or may not agree with. Immigrants are the entrepreneurs of the world. They pick up and they say, I believe there's a better way somewhere else, and I'm going to go find that life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to break the mold from my current situation. I'm going to go out on my own. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, the beauty of America's beauty and power lies in its ability historically to attract the best and brightest people around the world who want to come here because of an ideal of freedom to
Mm-hmm.
pursue a dream. And we've been the beneficiary of so many amazing people coming over here from all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring with them the German and the Czech and the Irish and the English and the African and Asian, just so many different regions, right? And it's beautiful. But yet the one cultural thread there is the entrepreneurship and the freedom and the work ethic and that kind of stuff. And so it really is beautiful to see people. I'm going to kind of get kind of like emotional here. It's beautiful to see all these different religions and colors and backgrounds and everything coming together under an ideal of freedom, democracy, just and the pursuit of economic, frankly, economic life, and just it's really beautiful. So I like what you're
Yeah.
saying there. I mean, I think I've never looked at it that way before.
Ah,
So
okay. Nice. I'm happy to give
Rob's
this.
making a specification of which American culture, because I
Yeah,
think Janet kind
that's
of
true.
pointed this out before. I read an article, and I think I don't know if it was in Time Magazine or something, but it was something like there was 17 different U.S. cultures. If you look at the United States map and you actually carved it up by cultures, you have this Appalachia, you have this Great Lakes, you have this kind of Texas, you have this, hill, Southeast, the West Coast, the mountains. I mean, you really have a lot of different cultures within the United States as well. And
Yeah.
so, um,
And
go
and
ahead.
we just described one certain part of what we can consider American culture. There are others as well, of course. And one of the ways culture is seen today as well is it's like zooming in and zooming out, so that you can zoom out and zoom out, and then you can even see something like an European culture. And when you start zooming in, it becomes more correct, less stereotypical, but also the number of people you're looking at becomes smaller and smaller. So it's a fuzzy concept that is actually connected to the word culture, I would say.
I
It's
love
it's
it.
not.
This is
Yeah.
great. This is great. If you're watching right now, I appreciate you so much. Everybody's getting so active in the comments. Keep the comments coming. I'm going to try to get to all of them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So hit a like button on your favorite comment. That'll kind of help me know which ones to kind of prioritize here. Let's see, Janet. I've recently learned about the Gulag Geechee people in the U.S. fascinating. Yeah, down in South Carolina. The Black culture on the coast of South Carolina is very interesting. Let's see here, Jody Harris. I like the realization about the little things that differ. We don't even think about. Example, Americans don't talk distance in terms of miles or kilometer. We talk distance in terms of time. My parents live 2 hours away.
Very good.
Jody says, you're right, Jody. Somebody said, oh, you should go down to Houston and visit somebody. I'm like, well, that's 4 hours. And then I had to look up how many miles it was. And then I had to make a reference to how far that was in European terms. I'm like, that's like going to Ireland for you, you know?
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we don't do that usually. We really use kilometers.
Right. Richard, Rob, so whilst there may be domestic variations from the outset, there are generalizations. Most Germans prefer to speak English with American accent, keenly adopt Americanisms in a nutshell, in my opinion. Richard also says when he worked in Germany, this is great. Where's this quote? This is great. He says when he worked in Germany at a burger place, he was still Mr. Majewski. Is it more formal? Is it last name?
It's still very much. I know people that are working 20 years with people and they're still using the last name, and they're very close. They know each other very much, but still using Mr. and Mrs. and then the last name. Yeah, but of course there are changes as well. In many companies, it becomes more and more also to use the first name. Sure.
Should I address you as Mr. Henkel?
Oh no, that would be totally inappropriate. I would.
Okay, good, because we're gonna have to start this whole thing over again. Yes, okay.
I remember I had a call with a high HR person from a company, and this guy was in Denmark, and I would definitely, I mean, it was a total business context, and I was definitely using his last name. But my Danish trainer on Denmark, she said, you never can use the last name. It's totally inappropriate. I was like, I cannot do that. And then he called me and he said, right, hi, Steffen, nice you're calling me. And then I said, okay, I can use the first name as well. But for Germans, in the first contact, it's something that where we have to jump over ourselves so that we can use the first name in the beginning, right? In a business context, at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't say in the U.S. it's inappropriate. I think it's a sign of respect, but it also sets up a dynamic where you're putting the other person up here, which is nice from a respect standpoint, but it's difficult to come back from that, like to negotiate and to then be on the same level at some point in the relationship. You've set yourself at a bit of a disadvantage, I think, in a way too.
Yeah, I can understand. What is really strange? What is really for me something. I have some clients that we have conversations with, let's say US Americans, and that we always use the first name. And when I talk to them in German, I have to, so to say, use the last name, the family name again, and say Mrs. and Mr. And that is like, okay, why? Can we not just stay with the first name? But it's just not common.
Wow, so interesting. Erin's talking about culture shock, and we got a couple of cool stories here. Erin's saying, sitting in a running car in Germany, and a woman walks out of her house straight to me and angrily informs me that leaving the car running is illegal in Germany. How dare I? I was like, so sorry. I'm from Texas, and it's just so hot there. So, old habits die hard.
Unsolicited advice. That's one of the things.
It's so hot in Texas. We leave our car running when we go in the store, so that when we come back out, it's still cold in the car.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a totally irresponsible American, and that's why global warming exists. Thank you so much. It's cold in your car, and the icebergs are melting. So good for you.
No,
okie dokie. No. This is great. Rob gives a great story. This is why these cultural stories are so great, because it's just, I don't know. There's something. What is it about showing like a culture and then saying, "Can you believe they did that?" Like there's some kind of a moment that happens. It's like a magic trick or something. It's weird.
I just heard somebody, and I cannot remember who. When we make fun and we laugh about something, that very often the moment we laugh about this is like a moment of realizing the truth, and then we might go back to the normal life. But this is what, when we talk about these stories, in this moment we realize it's stereotypes, it's not true, it can be true, is it? And we have this, our brain is opening up, and we realize something, and that is something that I love about these stories.
You've taught me another thing. Laughing is learning. When we laugh, that's punctuating a learning moment in our brain. And we remember it too, because we don't remember what people say, we remember how they make us feel. So, and we're laughing, and it's like we're almost bookmarking it in our brain to say, hey, we just learned something here, which is also very validating, because people say sometimes my show is too funny, it's too much people just joking around and having like a buddy fun time, whatever. And we're not doing enough PowerPoints and teaching people enough statistics about cultural training. But it's like, but I think we're learning the whole time. And I think you learn more when you're having fun than when you're sleeping through a PowerPoint presentation. Affirm me. Okay.
I totally agree.
Appreciate that. Rob Zeitz, London Underground. I was on the escalator, stood to the wrong side for just standing to the left, and a guy shoved me out of the way pretty hard. He probably thought I was just being a punk. Rob, I cannot wait to push you on the escalator. That's all I'm saying. No, that's funny. I heard about that. You can't stand on the wrong side. People said that when you go to London, you can't stand on the wrong side of the escalator. Nobody told me which side was the right side to stand on, though. So I would like constantly be switching. I would be looking down the escalator, and I'm like, okay, now I'm standing on this side. But the problem was I didn't know if these people also knew the right side or not. So I was just,
And it's different in the US? So people do not stand on the right and walk on the left?
I don't know, because we don't have like such a hard and fast rule. Stacy, Tim, do we have a hard and fast rule here in the US as far as which side of the escalator to stand and walk on? I don't know.
No, okay.
Stacy's giving me the Indian head bob over here. Tim says I have no idea. Stacy's pointing in that direction, but I don't know if our screens are flipped. I don't know if that's right. So it's interesting. Put it in the comments. Is there a rule in your country, wherever you are, for which side of the escalator to stand on? Please help me out right now. Jamie Massler checking in from Mississippi. This is great. Elena, so good to see you too. This is wonderful. Elena saying her best laughs were shared with Germans. That's so great. I love it. Let's see here. Aaron saying, I found it helps me to learn the value of culture, because then I can say, okay, this culture values X, so the following behaviors are going to be best accepted here. What rules of thumb do you give people about going into new cultures, Steffen? Even if you don't give them an exact, these people do this, these people do that, but what types of rules of thumb can you equip us for, regardless of what culture we're going into?
I mean, I would say one is we have 2 eyes and 2 ears and just 1 mouth. So is that something you say in the US as well?
It's gaining popularity. Maybe just with me. Maybe people have just said it to me a lot. I don't know. Okay. But yes, we do say this quite a bit.
So in the beginning, looking and hearing is better than saying and trying to learn and see what is going on. And so before we start, let's say, acting or so. And a certain humbleness, I think, would be using downsizers and when you speak, and not trying to be too being a little bit of humble in the beginning. That is something, because we are all learners, and we really thrown back to this being learners in these days when we're in new cultures. And that is actually a quite humble position, I would say. And it's good to be in this position, because it's expanding us. I mean, that's the whole fun in it. It's not only fun, but that's the thing that always excites me. I have my comfort zone, and when I'm outside, and this culture shock that you mentioned before, it's actually a phase. It's longer than just a shock, and then it takes time. And
how long does it take? How long does it take typically?
I would say several months to a year, until people really start functioning, let's say, completely like they do in their own culture. That needs time. But what it means is you're expanding your comfort zone, and that's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, learning, doing things new. I couldn't remember a German who was with me in a training. Usually I'm not so much in giving trainings. Most of my trainers do that, but that was the occasion where I was a trainer, and we were talking about that Germans in business life usually do not laugh very much, and that people in Hungary, that's where we were, laugh much more. And they said, do we now should start laughing all the time? that's not me. That's and then we said, what is the problem with that? I mean, it's a nice thing, and expand what you did before so that you do something new now. So
What are we just going to start being friends and laughing and using first names all over the place? I mean, where's our Germanness, right? Oh, this is great. No, this is great. I love it. I love it. Yeah. What's the problem with laughing so much? I mean, I remember I had a boss one time that told me he called me laughing boy. He told me I laugh too much. I said, well, stop being so ridiculous and I'll stop laughing so much. No, I didn't say that part. I thought it, and I just laughed. I didn't say it. Let's see. Steffen's like really worried about me. This is great. Germans, like he says, Germans have no sense of humor, or if an American invites you home, don't take it serious. These are some of the stereotypes that he's saying he's heard before. Richard's saying the stereotype he's heard works all ways. Brits are considered
Inselaffen. Okay.
What does that mean?
Actually, I almost never heard that, but Insel is island and Affe is monkey. So these are the monkeys from the island. But maybe it's something more in the northern parts saying that.
Maybe this is a Richard thing. Maybe this is at the burger shop he worked at. Mr. Majewski was in Halafen. Poles at work are chaotic. Polen Wirtschaft. Oh my goodness.
No, Poles and Wirtschaft is business, can be meant business in this one. So the way business is done is very chaotic, or kind of chaotic. I mean, I also didn't heard yet.
I like how you just made a list of like negative stereotypes about different cultures. This kind of went another direction. We probably shouldn't go here. No, but this is funny here. Let's see here. I'm working for a company that active worldwide, has subsidiaries across the globe. When we talk FE with our Chinese colleagues, don't exactly understand. It's all right. Let's see here. We got other folks coming in here. Richard, 2 ears, 1 mouth. According to Wendy yesterday, we have 2 livers for a reason. So my guest yesterday said we had 2 kidneys for a reason. I think she said. Richard, yes, I was thinking the same. Yes, thank goodness drinking crosses all Western cultures. You know, drinking is an interesting one. What advice do you give people about drinking when you do intercultural?
That's a good question. I mean, there are countries where drinking is really something, at least doing this in the evening with a meal and cheering and having these little speeches that you have before you drink. I don't know.
Toast. We call it a toast.
Yeah, a toast. And to go out of that is really difficult. I would say, for example, Elena knows this better than I do. For example, for Russia, that this is something that going out of that can be a sign of weakness. So somehow you have to go with it.
I got a story to tell real quick.
Okay.
So I was dating this Russian girl in college, right? And so we went back to her family's place in Queens, and we're sitting there, and at the dinner table, there's the wine glass, the water glass, and a little shot glass at a dinner table with like 60, 70-year-old parents, older parents. Okay. What kind of, I know a shot glass, I mean, really? Like that's what we're doing. And we did dinner, and we did a shot to start dinner. It was a toast in Russian, which I did not follow, but I understood. You drank, okay, fine. And then at any given point in the meal, someone feels moved to do so, they could propose another toast, at which point we all have to fill up our glass. And by the end of the meal, you're doing 4 or 5 shots of vodka or whatever, whiskey. And it made for a very interesting evening. I'll tell you what. It did. But I was like, wow, that's new. That's a different one. But I mean, hey, sounds fun. Okay. Oh my goodness, we're really sharing a lot today. That's great. All right, we got some here. By the way, if you ever want to compile for your trainings, Steffen, if you ever want to compile a which side to stand on guide, we've taken a poll here. Francine says here in the U.S. we stand on the right, pass on the left. Janice says no, we adjust to whatever's before us. I don't know if that's an escalator pointer or just life advice. Elena says in Russia you stand on the right or else. KGB
also can be kicked out of.
Jeez. Oh man, this is intense. Rob says most cities in Boston stand on the right, but it's not as much of a rule. When someone doesn't do it, people just stop walking and sigh. Shoving and sigh. I've been in Boston. People don't just sigh in Boston, okay? Oh my goodness gracious. This is great. It's Brazil, right side of the escalator, big towns. Okay. This is good. Interesting. People seem to agree. So apparently worldwide, this is a rule I just did not know.
And it's maybe in some countries more of a rule than in others.
Yeah. Here's one. We had to learn that our Chinese colleagues would never say no to a higher level manager's request. If you ask, can you deliver at this and that time, they will always answer yes. Ooh.
That is a difficult one. That there are some cultures where the word no is not used for, at least not for people that are hierarchical higher than you are. So it's difficult to realize what is actually, is it a no, is it a true, is it a yes? So you have to really read between the lines. That's true.
Well, I mean, that could be dangerous. So when people go over to these cultures, I mean, are they also expected to capitulate to the senior manager's request? I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
is
that's
this
one.
something we have to do?
That's of course one of the main topics in intercultural training. When you start a new leadership position and you know, or you know that your superior is from another culture, to learn what is regarded in this culture to be a good boss or a good how you call this, somebody who's below a boss,
Subordinate team member.
subordinate. Yeah. So how to behave there. And of course we know that people from other cultures are different, behave differently. So that means that we kind of open that things might be different, but in the long run we if we do not know that and we're not open to this knowledge that people can be here different, like, I mean the behavior can be different, then it can harm the relationship, definitely. I mean, we have with our one of our very close, I mean, Germany is a quite hierarchical society, but we have this consensus orientation, so we like to discuss things through and quite frank and open and direct, although it's with a superior. And in France, for example, this is a no-go, so you have to be much more not saying something against your boss. Le patron, yeah, that's the name how these people are called. And there, if a German goes to French and he's talking like this, how he's used to do it in Germany, he can give really not easy. He makes his life not easy, he or she.
Seems really, really interesting here. We got a couple more comments here, and then I want to ask you about the role of intercultural training in relocation. Richard says, "Sounds like our children an opposite day. Dad, I can have chocolate. No, good, because that means yes." Funny, Sandra. Yes doesn't always mean yes in several cultures and situations. Super
And that's even
confusing.
true for Germany. When you say something and somebody saying just yeah, that also can mean no. Yeah. Oh, okay. You have to say it another time. So
Interesting, because I do that with my children. Can I have a lollipop? Yeah, okay. And then usually they forget or something like that. Talking blocked in the past. Francine, one of the best weddings I attended was celebrating a couple from Croatia. The wedding couple brings around this high quality plum green alcohol that I cannot spell. Everyone needs to take a drink from it. If you are close to the wedding couple, you take multiple shots throughout the night. Amazing. There are no hangovers. And yes, this was before COVID. Thank you, Francine. Oh, this is great. Reading between the lines for some cultures is a really hard concept. Interesting. Huh. Elena, did you know that Steffen is one of the EU technology visionaries as it comes to intercultural preparations? Steffen, would you like to take this and run with it?
I mean, what we came up with, you mean, are we talking about this now or about intercultural training and preparation in relocation?
Yeah, sure. If you want to. Do we not want to talk about this?
I mean, what we do is like we connect the platform and tech-based stuff that is basically very much also provided from Globiana and the traditional training approach, and that tend to be much. The learning is much deeper, and the transfer into day-to-day work is higher than with a one-time day training that formerly was the standard, I would say. For me, cross-cultural preparation training is some core part of a proper relocation process, I would say. I mean, we always tend to say that cross-cultural training is a soft skill or something that is not, it can be done, but without is okay as well. But as I would say, soft skills or not having these soft skills can lead to hard consequences because of, I mean, there are too many things that happened already and that cost million or even lives because people were not aware of cultural differences.
I think that's a great point, and I think you're right. I think we overestimate our knowledge of other cultures and our ability to just, assimilate or move within these cultures and pick up on cues and understands when yes means no and things like that. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think we overestimate the importance of cultural fluency when it's our culture and people come into our culture. Like, how come they don't know how to do this? How come they don't know how to? And then when we go over there, we underestimate the importance of cultural fluency.
Very good point, and I've never have seen it so sharply put. Like, great. I will use that in future. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But I mean, it's so because no one would. I don't think we would have such a hard time justifying the cost and time in skilling people up on our culture if we had to deal with them, if they were the ones that didn't have the knowledge. And then they come over here and they don't know how to act in a meeting, and they're constantly, fighting with us in meetings because they think that that's okay if maybe that's not our culture, or they don't take direction as well, or they don't work within their team very well, or they do something in their personal life that causes an issue, there's all sorts of things that can happen, to your point kind of earlier. Do you have any stories? I mean, I think stories are always fun. It really drives it home. Do you have any stories of people maybe that didn't have the necessary cultural training and went into a situation and maybe something happened?
There's actually quite a lot. One thing that I can always remember. It's still about this usage of words that we had before in our conversation. It was a German-French team. And they were actually meeting up here in Stuttgart, where I'm right now. And it's just a quick travel from Paris to Stuttgart, just 3 hours something. And they were meeting up, and then they were saying, next time, both of us will bring a concept. That's the German word concept. And in French, it's concept. So it sounds very similar. And in English, we also have the word concept. But when Germans think about a concept, then you have something. It looks like a little book, and it's PowerPoint, and there's binding around it, so it looks like almost done. Yeah, when we say
so it's like a finished. It's like a product. It's a version of a product.
It looks like that.
Yeah.
But it's still a concept, so that it can be torn apart, but it looks very like a finished product. That's true. And for the French, the concept is, it's a couple of ideas, something that is the idea behind something that we want to produce or something. So they came with a couple of scribbled things on the sheets of papers, and they came together, and then we have like the stereotypes of both sides. They're like underlined. It's for the Germans, the French, they don't took seriously, or they're not serious about what we're doing here. They're just scribbling something too late. That's a typical stereotype Germans have about French people. And the other way around is, the Germans, they are already done, and we are not able to, our ideas are left out of the whole thing. So that's a typical stereotype French have about Germans. And it's only because they were never talking about, what do you mean when you say, let's bring a concept to our next meeting? And it's so easy. It's just they never were talking about it. So that's
it's
just
the
one
same.
of the
It's
examples.
the same word and a different understanding of that word and what the expectation is. Yeah. No, I could imagine that being a real issue. That's so interesting. So what is the best way? So I mean, talking in practical terms, we kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I want to really kind of get into this for a second, because we have people here who might work for RMCs. We have people here who might have corporate, programs that they manage. What is really the best practice, in your opinion, when it comes to delivering intercultural training that prepares people to have a successful assignment?
Okay, the best practice from my point of view would be to have something before the person or the family is transferred to the other country, so that people, and it doesn't have to be the whole day, a couple of hours is enough, so that people learn upfront something about the other culture and where they go to, and also about the transition they will go through this transfer. I mean, we have something like a culture shock, and it's almost not avoidable. So let people be aware about that. And it's still, of course, something that is not related to their experience, because the experience will be made when they're there. But to have some knowledge about that upfront, and also, of course, use this time to talk about their worries they have about the transfer and so on. So a cross-cultural training today is not anymore 150 slides of this is China and this is blah, blah, blah. It's more like, what is your situation? Where you go to? Where are you right now? Do you already know something about the company you're going, the country you're going? And from that, the training evolves out of this fundament of knowledge you have already, so that the training is built up what is already there. And then then there will be the transfer and so on. And after the transfer, like let's say a month later after arrival in the new country, then it's a good idea to have another session. And then people are usually filled up with questions up to here. And then you can go and talk about all these questions and apply what you've learned in the first part. And maybe even a couple of hours can be done virtual coaching sessions, so that you can adjust a little bit more, fine tune what you've learned, and new challenges might be there, and you can talk about this with your coach. So this would be for me the best way, and to integrate this with some tech-based information building, so that you can look something up when you need it. And this would be the fabric of the perfect preparation in my point of view.
Yeah, so I like having that reference tool for afterwards, because sometimes we get in situations like this where we're learning and we don't absorb it all. We need to go back to it. Certain situations present themselves. What types of clients make the most sense for intercultural training?
Actually, every company that is sending people abroad. And cross-cultural training, of course, is not only about intercultural preparation. So in the relocation context, it also makes sense for newly formed teams, for example. So always when there are teams working together internationally or interculturally or virtually, that's the case these days most of the time, and when people are prepared. And then it actually doesn't matter which industry a company comes from. The point is actually finding the proper trainer for that. So that, for example, somebody sent from the finance industry being sent abroad, he or she should get a trainer that is familiar with the finance industry, because usually everything is very quick and so on, and they have different questions than people from the from pharmaceutical industry or something.
It's so interesting you talk about finance, right? Because I was talking to my buddy he works at a very large multinational finance company, one of the biggest banks in the world. And he's got teams in India, he's got teams in the Philippines, he's got teams in New York City where they're based, and he's got teams in London, he's got teams in Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, he manages teams all over, right? And I asked him, I said, do you do intercultural training so that you understand how to interact with your Indian teams, your Filipino teams, and your Salt Lake City, Utah teams, et cetera, et cetera? And he didn't know. He said, no, that's really interesting. And I think it would be beneficial for us, because there's definitely huge communication gaps. We always talk about, it's funny, we always talk about communication, right? We always say, communication. You can't over communicate. Communication's key. These are all cliches. But sometimes communication is code for culture and cultural understanding, I feel like. Because even though we're talking and saying things to one another, to your point about the Germans and the French, we're talking past one another. We're not understanding one another. Yeah. And the gap is not more talking. The gap is more cultural understanding.
I could only agree with what you're saying, because
good. That's good.
the I mean, we are usually not running around and saying, "Oh, I need more intercultural competence.
Right.
I have
Nobody
a lack
says
of
that.
No, we
Nobody says,
say,
yeah.
"Why are these people not doing what I want them to do?" So that's what we say, and this is a good sign for some intercultural competence or some intercultural knowledge. I don't want to blame somebody. It's just intercultural knowledge can help here at this point. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. This is great. I mean, when we talk about it, it becomes so obvious to me. It's just one of the, I think it just remains intercultural competence and intercultural training remains to me one of those secret weapon kind of things, one of those underestimated, undervalued kind of opportunities in the relocations experience, in the global team experience. Now we're looking at dispersed, work from home, work from anywhere kind of workforces that are globally dispersed. I totally see an opportunity to really have this come together. I mean, I was in London 2 weeks ago, meeting with the Altavita team, and we had people from Prague, and we had people from the U.S., and we had people from England and the city in England, and then outer England, and people from all over. I think we had something like 13 nationalities, 15 languages. I mean,
Wow.
and we spent a lot of time laughing about the cultural differences and understanding one another and things like this. And so I could totally understand how intercultural training becomes even more important as we navigate these globally dispersed workforces.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Zeitz says cross-border virtual work without cultural training to make sure communication works seems like a disaster waiting to have. Rob, exactly. Exactly, buddy. 100%. Richard's pointing out my inadequacies yet again. Did this broadcast start late? Because there's only one person I can see responsible for that. You're right, Richard. So astute yet again. But he does enjoy your insights, even though they're a bit late. He says.
Thank you.
So we do have a couple minutes, though. Do you have a top 5 you want to share with us today, Steffen?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Let's hop into it. What do you got there? What's the topic of the du jour?
It's books. Top 5 books.
I like books. Books are good. Pro book. All right. Number 5.
The Martian by Andy Weir. I love this book.
My cousin loves this book too.
Yeah.
He does.
It's really great. I can understand. I mean, I love science fiction in the first place, always. And this one is like, this guy is going, I mean, he's on Mars all by himself, and he is able, by using science, to survive. And this step-by-step approach, very, very thought through thinking so that he can survive. That is something that was astonishing for me. And how the whole world is looking at this one guy and it's trying to make him survive and rescue him. And this gives me a very warm feeling. I loved it.
That's great. That's great. I'll have to. So this was also made into a movie, which I hear is terrible compared to the book. I mean, the movie is fine, but the book is supposedly tremendous. Number 4.
Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. I mean, that's a business book, and it's about how you become an expert and how you can position yourself in a market as an expert. And I was so excited about this book. There was almost on any page there was something that was, wow, that's so cool. I mean, this book is like the entry of a funnel. So he's using it to, Russell Brunson is using it to make people buy more of the stuff that he's producing. But the book itself is really great. And if somebody want to position him or herself as an expert, this is the book I would recommend. And it's exciting to read. It's fun also. So
I'm gonna have to make a note of this one and maybe download it on Audible if they have it. Are there a lot of diagrams or just a lot of insights in the written word?
Both, actually. It has little drawings in there, but you can. I read it on Audible. I read it and then I listened to it on Audible as well. So It's possible.
Okay. All right. Great. Number 3.
The Culture Map by Erin Meyer. This is like the newest book on cultural dimensions. She called them Culture Map, and she was able to. I mean, culture dimension is a quite old concept on how to compare cultures with each other, and she came up with not new ones, but she put them together in a new way, and she solved some of the problems that the older culture dimensions had. For example, Germany, as I said, is quite hierarchical, but because of the direct way of speaking and the conscious orientation that we have, we sometimes look not very hierarchical, but we are in fact. And same with Japan, also very hierarchical, but they have a way to trickle down ideas from up, from bottom to up and then down again. And when the people on the top say something, it's already gone through the whole organization, and that makes it look very hierarchical, but still it's a consensus orientation.
So they found a way to work around the hierarchy, because you can't be successful without having good feedback from the bottom up, listening to the people on the bottom. So they found a way, even though to preserve the culture and the face and everything, but then to still get ideas up to the top. That's
correct. And it looked like very hierarchical, because when you see it from the outside, you never realize that it already trickled down the whole organization. And that's a very good way to do that. It takes time, of course. That's something.
Wow, that's a really interesting idea. Number 2.
Greater Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, another science fiction. And I don't know, are you familiar with the Foundation series? Do you read this kind of stuff?
No, I'm not.
Okay, it's many books that come together, and it all plays in one universe. But this book I loved very much. It's playing on one planet, and a scientist is going through this planet, and there are different societies on this planet, and he's figuring out what is going on in these societies. It's actually much about different cultures, and that's what I always like in science fiction, when the creation of societies and ideas and political ideas are brought into the books, and that's what I like a lot. And this is happening here from page 1 to the last page. So that's my favorite science fiction book.
That's awesome. Sounds great. I love it. Well, no, right. When you talk about like political ideas and stuff, it sounds like allegory to some extent, like
yeah, true.
Some of the books I've read. All right, number 1.
Yeah, and that's a childhood book, The Brothers Lionheart. It's actually a little bit of a sad book, because it's about 2 brothers. I read it when I was young, and it's still the book that I would say is I think I stopped reading it, and then I started over again from the beginning. It's about 2 brothers, and they loved each other very much, and one of these died, unfortunately, and the other died a couple of weeks or months later. And then what they experience in the afterlife, and all the stories that the older brother told his younger brother that was sick, and we already know that he might not live very long. It becomes true. It's like a middle-aged time where they are, and they're dragons and so on. And I really love this book. It's full of love. So
how old were you when you read this book?
I guess I was something like 9 or 10. Okay.
I got a 6-year-old, so I'm just trying to understand if it's appropriate for me or not. But this sounds really cool. Sounds great. I love it.
It is very nice.
That's fantastic. It's always so much fun to talk to you, Steffen. Sandra's saying really, really great session today. Thank you for sharing, Steffen. I'm sure we all feel we've acquired a new friend.
Oh, thank you, Sandra.
In the American sense of the word, and maybe the German sense. Who knows? Richard, great show. Accept, tolerate, communicate to assimilate. Love it. Love thy neighbor. Very cool.
Thank you, Richard.
Is love a concept that we throw around too casually here in the U.S. or maybe other places? Is that a word that maybe is looked upon and say that's a little familiar? Like, maybe. Is Love and Relo a preposterous name for a podcast?
Oh, no. I love this. I really love it.
Just kidding. I'm totally kidding. It is slightly preposterous. But no, I mean, are we too familiar with the love word?
I don't know. Maybe it goes easier over your lips. It's always difficult the word love is also something, it's so easy to say for me in English, the word love, but to say it in German to somebody else is something to really hard think about it.
Oh.
So it's also connected whether I use another language or my own. So
kind of like speaking in English and using a first name, speaking in German, using a last name.
Yeah,
Very
kind of.
interesting. Very interesting. This is great. Felicia's saying one of my favorites as well, the Brothers Lionheart. This is great.
Yeah.
Rob Zeitz, Dankeschön. This is great.
Danke auch.
Yeah, Teresa, thank you for a great show. I always learn something. Sometimes I learn many things like this one. Jody, yes, Washington D.C. Metro stand on the right. Yep. Felicia checking in here. People, I love what people pull out of this. It's really great. This is wonderful. And actually, we have one last question, even though we're kind of done. Desiree, do you have any numbers on how many companies use intercultural training?
Whoa, that's a tough question.
Just say a number. Nobody will know.
I would say that the number the bigger companies with let's say more than 10,000 people working for them, employees, they tend to have this as a standard. And then now we have to look up how many companies are there with more than 10,000. I guess.
I love it. People, yeah, that's interesting to look at personas. So 10,000 employees or more. It'd be nice to see companies with a lot fewer employees starting to use this at a deeper level. Richard saying, I'm still waiting for my German wife to hear, I love you. Interesting. Thank you for sharing, Richard. Elena, great show as always. Thank you so much, Elena. It was great having you on as well back then. And wonderful. I echo all the sentiments, Steffen. It was really wonderful having you on today, as always. And thanks to everyone out there that got involved. The comments were so on fire. People had such a great time in the comments. Without the stories and the input, honestly, the show would not have been nearly as good. So thank you for everyone who got involved out there and shared your, run-ins with culture out there in the real world. Appreciate your stories and your candor out there. Also, just a reminder, everyone, it is Hunger Action Month. So we are supporting Move for Hunger here on the show, which means every Thursday in the month of September, we are going to be doing something for Move for Hunger. And this month we are raising hopefully up to $50,000 to support food insecurity. So thank you everyone who's already donated. I think we're over $11,000 right now. We're going to have our big push on this Thursday with a dozen people from Global Mobility chiming in. We got grocery stores. We've got a bunch of people. So hopefully we can raise 20, 30, 40 grand on that show on Thursday. So please tune in. If you donate $50, $70, $100, you get t-shirts, you get socks. I mean, we're throwing all sorts of Love and Relo merch at you. So please tune in. And also, please do me a favor. Now that the show is done, go follow the Love and Relo company page. By following that page, you will get access to exclusive content, such as Peggy Smith doing her story live with a bunch of women in the business who have great stories. So please tune in. Please support Peggy Smith and all of the amazing women in the global mobility industry telling their story in their own words on Her Story Live. So follow Love and Relo's company page. And I want to lastly shout out super producer Stacey Huff, Tim Quirk, Jana Chesnowski, and all the people that helped make this show possible. Thank you so much to all of you. Steffen, thanks again for a great one.
Thank you very much.